SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Hi, this is Chris Keene with Cannon Ford Lincoln. Forget about the tariffs raising prices. Ford Motor Company has lowered prices. Employee pricing across the board on Ford and Lincoln products. Come see us at Cannon Ford Lincoln. When the smoke clears, nobody beats a Cannon deal. Nobody.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for starting your day with us here on Tuesday, April 8th. How you doing this morning, Lance?
Good morning. Got a little cool to the air out there. I think this week it's perfect for you because it's you get to get up real early.
Exactly.
And you probably aren't used to, the little crisp air hitting you on that nicely shaved face. And
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that this morning, getting in my truck. I thought, we're not going to feel this for a while, so you got to really enjoy it while you got an opportunity to.
Take it in, man. And two, that's the one thing I really do enjoy about getting up. There's probably several. The lack of traffic. Mm-hmm. It's really wonderful. If you haven't tried it, you should, get up early, drive around town and realize, man, there are a lot of people that live around here that get up and go to work.
Yes.
They don't get up before 4:30 though, generally. And when it's crisp, even in the summer when you get that little bit of cool air, you walk out the door and you're expecting, it to be like a sauna, and you get it's like today, right. You get that one little thing. Oh man, that feels good.
That's right.
Not gonna last, but yeah, y'all enjoy. Hopefully the rain and the wind and all that has subsided a bit for everyone, and they can enjoy a beautiful, cool day.
That is the truth. Enjoy it, because pretty soon it's going to get all kinds of hot, and that ain't going to change until sometime in the fall. I tell you, the other thing that's great about getting up early in the morning is the silence, because there's nothing better than the joyous noise of young children. I mean, it's wonderful. But I don't get a lot of time to sit in silence and read things that aren't directly related to something I'm working on. And so that there's that moment, you got a little bit of time early in the morning where you're actually able to sit there in silence and do some reading and do some thinking. I can see why people wake up early to do devotionals or other things. There's something to be said for that.
I love the still. It's one of the beautiful things about
it's a good way to put it.
Getting out into the woods and letting nature do its thing, because it's never really still.
Right.
But it's not like those sounds that we hear every day, which is noise and sirens and glass packs on cars and
That's right.
But it's really peaceful. And I've enjoyed the early mornings getting up, because you do get that. It's a great way to start the day when it's not hectic.
Yeah.
But I do hate running late. If I oversleep a few minutes and you feel like everything's just kind of coming together poorly, it sets the day up poorly.
That's
you kind of have to get your mind back right, where you're like, okay,
and this is a job you can't really be late for.
No.
There are not many jobs that it's okay to be late getting there, but when these microphones go hot, everything's got to be right.
And when I mean late, it's like, the 2 minutes extra you sit at the red light because
exactly.
you're doing some work and you're going, man, I got 2 minutes of work I've got to do. But yeah, that's the only thing that really gets me sometimes. It's just a little bit of the hecticity of getting here, getting everything crunk up, making sure it's running and everybody is here and is fine, because, I take a lot of pride in that. And when it doesn't work, they point at you. Come on, Lance, it's not working here. And I understand you folks. Our job is to keep it rolling, and it's always fun to have you two. I know you don't get to sit in the seat all the time, but it's what do you think about getting in and being part of a 3-hour morning show and going to do lawyer work?
I love it. It is a real joy that I get to do from time to time. So and it's always great to be with you. I enjoy seeing you and enjoy the audience.
It's a lot of fun to get to visit with so many people, and I think having different perspectives. Everybody's got an opinion. We were talking about tariffs yesterday, and then you got the big meeting with Iran coming up, and whether a deal's going to be made, and Trump talking about direct talks, and then you got Iran saying no indirect talks, and then you're dealing with market fluctuations and every little thing, and it is a lot of information that we get to handle, and I think people put a lot of trust in us to do that. So greatly appreciated.
I think that's
that
right.
You tune in and give us an opportunity to fill you in. I think you're going to have a pretty day out there if we start with a little weather today.
Yeah, why don't you let us know what it's going to look like?
It's going to be a little cool today. It looks like clear skies, probably in the 70s across the state once you kind of get there. Central Mississippi Delta area, I think you're going to wake up in the 40s. Probably get a little warmer as you go south there, but it's going to be a day that hopefully people are going to get to enjoy. I don't think there's any rain on the horizon, but my radar hasn't quite kicked in yet.
It was beautiful yesterday afternoon. Man, if that's any indication of what today's going to be like, it's a great day to find a reason to be outside.
There was a heavy cloud every now and again that would just sprinkle something for a second, and then it was gone. Mm-hmm. And then you just have the blue skies. But no, I'm not seeing really any cloud cover, anything to worry about today.
This feels like one of those days that when you were in high school, you'd try to beg the teachers to move the class outside, even if it was just a mechanism to let you kind of have less time in class.
College, too. When you had a little more pull with the professors because some of them were almost close to your age. Like, come on, let's go sit out in the Grove or
that's right,
class out here, man. Come on. So that's that time of weather, yeah. But it's going to go away soon, and the mosquitoes and everything will be here before you know it. Oh,
absolutely. And if you want to be part of this conversation, hit us up on the C Spire text line with a text at 601-879-4395. The listening audience is the best part of this show, and we love to have people be involved. Now, tell me this, Lance. You talking about being late. Are you one of these people who, when your gas tank is half empty, you're pulling over and filling the car up? Or
no, I've run out of gas many times.
I am the exact same way. And it's crazy to me because, I've got more than a nickel in my bank account. Yeah. Like I can afford to call it $20 worth of gas. I can get the gas in the car. But I am so bad about waiting until the absolute last minute. And it almost got me in trouble this morning.
Oh, really?
We've got family in town. So when I left my office yesterday, I wanted to get home in time to be helpful with kids, helpful with supper. My in-laws are here. And so knew I was low on gas. I don't know that I knew quite how low I was on gas. I got in and cranked the car this morning to come to the studio, and it was exactly 1 mile to empty was the prediction.
Yeah.
We hit zero as I was cresting the hill nearest the gas station, and I just kept thinking, so long as I can make it to the top of this hill, I should be fine because I can roll all the way down, but ended up making it there and getting some gas in the car.
I noticed you hung out in the parking lot doing some business before you came in, so you must have got gas.
I did, in fact, get gas.
I've definitely run out of gas enough times to say that I push it probably a little too much. And it's never that I don't have money in the account to buy gas.
That's the thing.
It's just it's like doing laundry to me. It's the least favorite thing I have to do.
Exactly.
And I just let it pile up. And I guess gas is kind of the same way. It's like I hate stopping at the gas station. It's nothing against the people that work there or the product or anything. It's not my favorite thing. You're ready to get home or you're ready to get where you're going, and then you go, oh, man, I've got to get gas. And it just kind of throws off everything.
I'm the exact same way.
So I'm religious at night, though. Before I go to bed, I'll go out and make double sure that I've got enough to get to the office. I'm not worried about it once it gets here. If I've got to push it across the street, right. About 9 or so, I'll go, okay, let's double check, make sure, because I have a couple of times had to, pull over a little earlier than I wanted to and get gas and go, man, this is not – you don't need to do this every morning. But it's funny because I will find a different breakfast sandwich, sometimes when you have that emergency gas pull over at 5 in the morning and then you pull into a gas station you don't normally go into. And I did that recently, and they had this amazing breakfast sandwich. It was like a croissant. It had like 2 pieces of sausage on it, egg everywhere, cheese. I said, why don't you let me have one of those?
There we go.
And it took the whole 4 hours to eat the thing one morning. I think it was a Saturday.
I'm pretty sure. I know we got some criticism yesterday for not pronouncing croissant correctly.
Croissant.
But I'm pretty sure when you put sausage and egg and cheese in it, that's a croissant.
It is. It's a croissant.
It stops being a croissant at that point.
It is. And, you can do so much with a croissant. A nice, basically tuna fish sandwich or shredded chicken salad sandwich. There's so many things you get to do with a a croissant. You can even make them desert. I mean, the dessert croissant, desert croissant. I love every version of it. It's just it's the way to roll.
So I never had one, but there was a while. This has probably been 20 years ago. There was a thing called a cronut, and I think you can still buy them. But there was some bakery in New York. It was when the idea of going viral wasn't quite the term. The term hadn't really been coined for when things would just turn into memes. But it was some bakery up there that had made a donut. But it was essentially croissant dough in the shape of a donut that was fried, and it was one of those deals where people would go line up on a Saturday morning and wait for 3 hours to go get one of them.
The donut has, to me, again, I love the donut. I'm not sure what you think about it.
I'm a big fan.
The basic chocolate iced.
Oh yeah, that was a Saturday tradition when I was a kid. Folks would go to the Shipley's donut, not Shipley's, whatever donut place it was that is over in Fondren, and grab some and bring them home, and they were good.
Oh, man, the ones with the white powder.
No, these were.
No, I'm just saying that's my weakness. Yeah, the little donut hole, white powdered donut holes. Oh.
I'm team chocolate or glazed. Y'all stick with us. We'll have more of this kind of stuff coming up after the break.
Down on my mind. First, I'm gonna stop at the whiskey store. I'm gonna buy me a jug of wine. First, I'm gonna stop at the whiskey store. I'm gonna buy me a jug of wine. I'm gonna hit the highway. They call Highway 49.
From the Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Standing on a corner, looking for you, babe.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Got a great show coming up for you today. Hope you'll stick with us. We've got Andy Gipson, who'll be coming to us from Panama, down there retaking the canal, I believe. Delbert Hosemann, the Lieutenant Governor, will be with us at 7:30. And then Karla, the Director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi, will be with us at 8 o'clock. April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and she'll be in to talk a little bit about that. But should be a great show. It's a good day to lock it in and stick with us for the next 3 hours, and you can be part of the conversation with Lance and me or any of these folks by sending us a text to the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. Well, a couple people do point out, Lance and I were talking about our tendency to not fill up our vehicles early enough and let it get too close. And several people have pointed out it's bad for your fuel pump to run out of gas. Oh, I know. I don't think it's a good thing. Or something you should just let your car run out of gas on a regular basis. But and it's been a long time since I've actually run out of gas. But there have been a few times, there have been more times than I should admit as a grown up where I'm, turning the air conditioning off to try to get the extra little bit of fuel economy to make it to the store. So I don't. But y'all are right. Don't run out of gas. It's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a good idea, but I mean, there's a lot of things that I do that probably aren't good. For whether it's the vehicle or whatever. So it's not a thought of like I don't love my vehicle. I do.
Exactly.
I love it. It gets me where I need to go. I've had it for a long time. We're attached at the hip. And it's nothing personal to the vehicle. It's just my weirdness, I guess. Well,
it's you should always eat right and go to bed early.
Yeah, and I don't do those things either.
Same. But I don't disagree that that's very good advice.
Of course.
Speaking of, we were talking about the cronut. If you're in the Metro Jackson area, according to one person on the C Spire text line, you can get a cronut type item at Epic Donuts. So you don't have to travel to New York. You just have to go to Madison.
Okay. That does look delicious. What in the world am I looking at here? Oh, my God. I didn't know that such existed.
I've heard about it. I mean, I remember when people were lining up.
Yeah, where was this that we have to Epic Donuts.
Epic Donuts in Madison apparently has one. So you don't have to travel to New York. You can get it here. Well, it's Tuesday. It is April 8th. Lance, is there an official designation of the day?
Are we at the 8th already?
I know.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, a good one, too, for you folks out there. Today is National Empanada Day.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, speaking of sweets, I was kind of saving the best for last there. An empanada, what a delicious fried little treat of
I'm a fan.
Apple, whatever. Sugar, maybe a little cinnamon in there, and the fried pastry exterior.
You cannot go wrong.
No,
can't go wrong with any whether it's sweet or savory. Pretty much anything inside a fried dough is going to be a good situation.
I love the sweet empanadas, but I'm a fan of just the fried meat pocket empanada.
Oh yeah,
just throw some ground beef in there that's seasoned like taco seasoning. And fry it up, man. Come on, let's go.
I'm 100% with you. I'm a big fan. And they have variations of them all over the world. They've got different names in different places. But I think for about as long as people have been living, they've figured out that if you put good stuff inside a dough and throw it in some fat, that's going to be even better.
You can't beat it. Well, who was the first to sell an empanada in America?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Taco Bell.
Really?
Can you believe that?
I did not know
That's
that.
who gets credit. You can't tell me that there wasn't a little stand
I bet you there was somebody
in South Texas
native. That's right.
Arizona that was like, hey, we make a pretty good empanada. And somebody said, what's that? Oh, let me show you. Here, it's $2. But so Taco Bell gets the credit for it. And they've made their way, they originated in Europe, honestly, and came this way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Kind of taken over the world when it comes to the, a lot of, I would say Hispanic food has. I mean, you notice there's 5 Mexican restaurants and everywhere. They're apparently very popular. I love them. I mean, personally, I love the cuisine. I like the flavor. I like you get some crunch, you get some meats, you get some vegetables in there, and a bunch of spices. It's hard to beat that stuff. I mean,
I'm with you. Yeah, Have you? And Johnny and Brandon on the C Spire text line actually took. I was thinking the exact same thing. Have you ever been to Tom's Fried Pies?
Oh, I love that place. My dad, I took him out there a few months ago, and we sat down and. I ordered like 5 pies. They were like, "Oh, which ones do you want?" I said, "I want. Give me one of these, 2 of those, 3 of these." It felt like Rodney Dangerfield in there, ordering the pies. They were delicious, though. Excellent
they are
place.
Good.
Reminds me of my mamaw. She made what she would call a tart, and she take the biscuit dough and roll it out, and then make it in a crescent moon, fill it up with goodies, and then cinch it back down with the thumbnail. Perfectly, and then fry them up, and they were amazing. You forget how awesome you had it back when you were a kid, because all you ever wanted was the fried pies and the chocolate cake, but also the vegetables and the fried chicken and everything. Goodness gracious, it was like a smorgasbord,
and all cooked for you.
Yeah, okay, I didn't have to pay for any of that.
That's a good point.
There was a chicken running around at some point, and then it got cooked. That's how it worked back then. Farm to table. Yeah,
everything was farm to table at some point.
Well, we had a few birthdays probably worth mentioning today. One of my faves, Patricia Arquette, the crazy Arquette family. She's 57 today. Taylor Kitsch at 54. And a couple others out there. It's not a big day for birthdays.
No,
John Schneider, come on now. John Schneider's 65 years old. And let's see, Robin Wright hit 59 today. The late Mary Pickford, she was one of the founding folks for the United Artists, and so she was America's sweetheart there for a bit, and passed in 1979, late Mary Pickford. Musician world, not a ton out there today, but Izzy Stradlin, Guns N' Roses, he was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and 63 years old, born Jeffrey Dean Isbell, but Izzy Stradlin is the stage name. And let's see, I don't remember the comedian Shecky Green.
I don't either.
He would have been 99 years old today, yeah. And then the First Lady, Betty Ford, passed in 2011. She was First Lady from 74 to 77, and she was known for her candidness about her battle with alcoholism and the founding of the Betty Ford Center, which a number of celebrities have credited with helping them clean up their act. So thank you, Miss Betty Ford.
There we go.
And let's see here. There was a couple of interesting things that happened today, and I don't know if we covered this on another day. I thought we did, but it's 1974. Hammerin' Hank Aaron, he hit his 715th home run, breaking Babe Ruth's record in Atlanta.
Wow.
Now, I thought we covered that the other day, so maybe they were a little confused on which day it was, but there was another Hank Aaron bomb and Babe Ruth record-breaking day. I think it was like Thursday or Friday, so I got to go double-check on that one. 75, Frank Robinson became the first black manager in Major League Baseball. Clint Eastwood in 86 was elected mayor of Carmel by the Sea, California, by a landslide. Served there in that position until 1988. And let's see here if there's anything. I thought there was one other. Oh, yeah, there was the 1968. I don't, obviously wasn't around then, but the 40th Academy Awards were actually postponed until April the 10th due to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the same day. Baseball's opening day was also postponed for 2 days for the same reason. So those are the big things that happened on this day in Historia.
There you go.
And that's what I got for you there. And the empanada,
Yeah, I'm telling you,
that's your day today.
Well, we've some people are complaining on the C Spire text line that they're hungry driving to work.
I'm sorry.
So much talk of it.
Yeah, we'll find you a good spot that's got a big croissant,
exactly,
heavy duty breakfast sandwich, and knock it out.
That is
one of my favorite things. I learn so much every day doing this. Somebody's got to tell us. You got to say, "Hey, this is where you get the best this." When you're on your way to work, and you're in Central Mississippi, this is where you get the best this. I always love it when people tell us things like that because I'm the one that's going to go find it.
Yeah.
You tell me where the best fried chicken is, where the best taquito. I'm going to go. I'm going to locate it at some point.
I hadn't done this in 15 years, but there used to be a blog that somebody ran in the Jackson area, and they had programmed. They designed a program. I think the woman's husband or boyfriend or somebody had designed it, if I remember correctly. And every time a new restaurant license would be issued by the city or by the Department of Health, I'm not an expert on who issues that, but she would go eat there and write a blog post about it. And for like a year, one of my good friends and I, every time she would write a new blog post, we would go check out the place if she wrote good things about it. And in fact, we actually went to Tom's Fried Pies back when they first opened, and it was over on McDowell Road before they moved out to 49 where they are now.
Great place on 49.
They do.
It's very convenient, too, if you're on that side of town. With the amount of road work that they've done on 49, I got to tell you, man, that's growing up going down 49. Boy, Heidi, it's much nicer now.
Oh,
goodness gracious!
I remember going
family in McGee. That's where we were every weekend, just about.
And that work took forever. I mean, I don't doubt that it was the right amount of time, but I distinctly remember going down with a cup of coffee to give a speech, and somewhere between Richland and Florence, I was going to Simpson County. Hit one of those massive bumps and ended up with 8 ounces of, fortunately, just lukewarm coffee all over my dress shirt.
You didn't have McDonald's coffee, apparently.
I ended up running into the Walmart down there and finding a shirt that fit, and that's what I wore for the rest of the day. Man. Well, y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more coming up next.
Sometimes, and he has to wonder why. An old hippie and he don't know what to do. Should he hang on to the old? Should he grab on to the new? He's an old hippie. This new life is just a bust. He ain't trying to change nobody. He's just trying real hard to adjust.
From the sea. No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Keep everything in the formula. Upset in every way.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Lance, as always, is bringing it with the music as we bump into the third segment in our 6 o'clock hour. Well done, Lance.
Thank you. The rooster's got a crow to get you up in the morning.
There we go.
Like I was watching the Anita Pallenberg new Netflix biography. That was the Rolling Stone girlfriend.
Okay.
And she was an actress and all that. And dated Brian Jones to start with, and then I believe married Keith Richards. Had a little fling with the main guy there for a second. But, yeah, she's an interesting sort, but a very interesting
sounds like it.
Biography because she was German-Italian, grew up in the war period, and ended up getting out of Europe and moved into America, became a model and did many things. But very interesting story. at the time of just craziness.
Yeah, that is not a story I can imagine.
I didn't know much about her, but I learned. It was one of those you go, okay, yeah.
This was a Netflix.
Yeah, I just kind of saw it. I know it was on Hulu, maybe. I'm not. It was one or the other. But I don't think it's case sensitive to Hulu. I believe it's just like somebody's.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's out there, but it was very good. So you ought to watch it if you don't know. If you like the Stones too, because there's so much information in there about the band members, things I didn't know, and I'm always fascinated with history, especially the creative side of the world. Those folks, they have a different way of doing things.
Absolutely.
I'd like to think we create some art here, but we're definitely not the Rolling Stones. So
there's some differences.
Yeah,
there's some
differences there.
What did you watch the national championship
enough
game?
of it, yeah. It look, I got to it right there before half. It was Houston. And then after half, Houston, and they were up about 10. Florida, what they do though. They just keep drilling baskets and outscored Houston 37-32 in the second half to win that 65-63. Florida Gators are your new natty. That was an excellent game. Florida really showed out. Alex Condon with 12 points. You had Richard with 18 and Clayton Jr. 11. Not much off the bench, but the starting outfit really put it to him. Houston spread it around a lot. They didn't really have anyone out there other than the Cryer kid that was just dominating. But they played a good game, and a lot of folks felt like Houston was going to win that. It was just kind of
they were up almost the entire game.
The whole game,
just for a few seconds at the end.
Florida did the same thing to Auburn. Auburn was kind of putting it to Florida there for a bit, and Florida just continues to be resilient and very deserving of a national championship. One of the more interesting Final Fours I've seen, especially with the 4 1 seeds in there that made it. So it's kind of, start to finish there of the tournament. It was what you expected almost.
Right.
The best 4 ended up being at the end. That doesn't happen that often. So
that's true.
That's true. the way the cookie crumbles a lot of times. So congratulations to Florida. And then obviously we had UConn winning their 12th on the women's side on Sunday. So that wraps up NCAA basketball. I know some people will be excited about that, and some are going to be disappointed. I'm sure Houston and Dixon are glad that you got one thing
right.
that you don't have to deal with. But so we move on, and we've got a lot of baseball that will be played today. Almost everybody is on the docket. Ole Miss is going to take on Memphis. That is a 6 o'clock game. That will be in Memphis, so if you're in the neck of the woods, you need to get up there and check that out. Ole Miss will back in that and come home and play Alcorn tomorrow. So you got Alcorn State tomorrow, Memphis today. And that's a rough start there to a week where you got to go play you got Tennessee coming into town.
Oof.
And they're going to be a little upset after the type weekend they had. And, again, Ole Miss is playing good ball, won 2 out of 3. We'll see where it goes from there, getting to midway point of the SEC schedule. And it's always nice to be a little bit or well above 500 when you get 15 games in, and you got the downhill slide. You can give yourself a little wiggle room. And I got into a little bit of a debate yesterday. Some folks were like, well, South Carolina was terrible. They're a terrible team. State beat a terrible. Well, look, man, there are going to be teams in the SEC this year that are going to have 11, 12 wins that are good teams, 10 wins. They may make a regional this year. It's so loaded in the SEC. My brother-in-law and I, we had this conversation yesterday. So State did what they had to do on the weekend to kind of get back to some semblance of order. They get that Friday night figured out with their ace, Pico Khan, who's an excellent pitcher. The sky's the limit there. So they beat South Carolina, did what they're supposed to do, and they'll have UAB tonight in Birmingham. So they will travel over there and probably just spend the week in Alabama, since they have Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You'd hate to have to come all the way back, go to class, and then have to play baseball on Friday with a Thursday travel day there. So State has UAB tonight at 6 o'clock, and that's going to be in good old Birmingham right there by the interstate. And
am I right? You can at this point you can get all SEC baseball games on through the ESPN app.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to drive to Birmingham today, you can just sit down and hit ESPN and open that baby up and watch everything. So it makes it so much easier, which I'm a huge fan of. We didn't have that when I was playing. I mean, if you were on TV, like, what? We're on TV
today?
It's
such a rare thing.
Yeah, so Alabama, they have a 3-game series with a very good Alabama team. That will be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series for Mississippi State. Southern Miss, they had an ugly weekend. lost the 2 out of 3 to Marshall, and hopefully they will be able to right the ship today. They will actually play Alabama Tuesday, which is today at 6 o'clock. That will be in Tuscaloosa. And I always loved going over to Tuscaloosa and playing their little stadium, man. You can jack them out of that place. So you got to be careful as a pitcher. But Southern Miss hopefully will get back on the winning ways after dropping the Sunday game to Marshall 6-0. I did want to say, give a little bit of an update here on the SWAC. Jackson State's going to have New Orleans today. Big opponent for Jackson State coming into Jackson, Mississippi today. University of New Orleans with the Privateers, I believe. That'll be at Bob Braddy Field at 6 p.m. You also have the leaders and how the SWAC's breaking down right now is Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, and Alcorn are back. They're the back half right now. Jackson State 4-8, and Alcorn 0-12. Mississippi Valley State is 4-8. So you got 2 4-8 teams and 0-12 in the SWAC Mississippi teams. And the rest of the group there, the best team in the SWAC right now is Florida A&M. So they're 11-1, having a great season. Bethune-Cookman and Texas Southern both also having good seasons at 10-2 and on some significant winning streaks there. So that gets us caught up with the SWAC. And in the SEC, if we want to know what the stand-ins are, I'm going to get those for you in just a second. But I wanted to give an update on the girls softball because there is we have some really good teams here in Mississippi. And just to kind of tell you what I mean by that, Jones Community College, number 3 in the country. All right? That's the starting point there, 37-6. And Colin, right behind them, they're number 4 in the country.
That's great.
30-4. Yeah. And then don't go too far out of the way here. We got number 8 in the country, Northwest Mississippi Community College at 28-6. So in the top 10, you got Jones, Copiah Lincoln, and Northwest. Pearl River is down at 14. Northeast is 11. So, I mean, you think about it, we're almost checking off all the JUCOs here in Mississippi. So there's a great amount of absolutely amazing softball being played here in the state of Mississippi.
You know, and we took the kids to a Mississippi State softball game earlier this season when we were up there.
Yeah.
And it's just a great – I mean, I can't speak for every park in the state. It's very fast, but it's also just a great spectator experience because, you know, the tickets aren't expensive. It's not like when you're trying to get second row, third base seats at an SEC series. I mean, they're inexpensive, but you got a great view. It's a great park. I mean, it's a good way to spend an afternoon and go support some great student athletes.
Oh, yeah. The stadiums are quaint and tight. The game moves so fast. And to watch the ladies make the plays with that huge ball.
Right.
And then you're standing really right on top of the hitter in the infield. The way that it all comes together is amazing to me to watch. You have to be so fast, so clean. The running, you know, from home plate to first. I mean, there's no time to field a ball and throw it. It's just so fast. It's almost like watching 9 and 10-year-old baseball, but extremely organized. Like,
right.
There's just not enough time to get all this done. And then one of them will blow one out of the park, you know, in 2 seconds. And these girls throw so hard from that distance, underhand, with so much movement. It really is remarkable.
They're very talented.
I'm going to cover the D1 teams in the state tomorrow as far as softball. But that gave us a little taste of how good and how well figured we are here with softball. And congratulations to all those programs that are just tearing it up right now.
That is the truth. Well,
Yes,
if you want some more sports information or just want to hear from the great Gerard Gibbert, Middays with Gerard Gibbert and Sports Talk Mississippi will be at the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau on Thursday for the annual Catfish in the Alley event that features Southern flavor, the blues, and history.
So, Catfish in the Alley, that sounds like a delicious treat and a great place to eat it.
That absolutely does. That absolutely does. So catfish doesn't sound half bad.
No. Well, you got empanadas and catfish today? Man,
there we go.
Can't go wrong with that.
Well, y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have a lottery update coming to you after this break.
If you be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal. I can call you babe, and Betty, when you call me out.
From the Venable Glass.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, it is time for the Mississippi Lottery Updates, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Lotto America had no jackpot winner. Its estimated jackpot for Wednesday, April 9th, is $28.82 million. That's an estimated cash value of $13.9 million. The numbers from Monday, April 7th were 4, 8, 13, 27, and 37. The star ball was 7, and the all-star bonus multiplier was 4.
Well, Powerball, you don't have a jackpot winner yet. Wednesday will be the drawing date for $65 million. Estimated cash value on that, $31.4 million. And then the numbers from the Monday drawing, 20, 23, 48, 59, 66, Powerball of 4, Power Play multiplier of 2.
Double play numbers from Monday, April 7th were 2, 31, 36, 51, and 58, and the Powerball was 15.
Oh, so you're double playing it, huh? Yeah, Mega Millions, no jackpot winner. Tonight's drawing, $54 million. Estimated take-home pay for that, $25.7 million. Numbers from Friday, 11, 28, 35, 37, 69. Mega Ball of 25. You had a Mega multiplier of 2.
With Mississippi Match 5, there was also no jackpot winner. The estimated jackpot for tonight is $91,000. The numbers from Monday night's drawing were 4, 18, 29, 30, and 33.
Well, Monday's cash 3 $500 midday 239, evening number 039. Cash 4 $5,000 midday drawing 0538, evening numbers 4740. You had a fireball of 9 and a cash pop of 2 for the midday. The evening fireball of 3 with a cash pop of 9.
Well, the Mississippi Lottery Corporation completed its March transfer of $10,828,000 in net proceeds to the Lottery Proceeds Fund in the Mississippi State Treasury. This brings the fiscal year 2025 total transfer to approximately $85,200,000. Since the lottery began selling tickets in November of 2019, it has transferred more than $663 million to the state of Mississippi.
Wow, that's a chunk, isn't it?
That is some real cash right there.
Well, Mega Millions, speaking of millions, the enhanced Mega Millions game is here. The first drawing of the updated game is tonight, April the 8th. There will now be a built-in multiplier on every play, boosting non-jackpot prizes up to $10 million. No more break-even prizes. Every win is worth at least a double your play. The 26 multi-draw option has also returned. So each play is $5 with drawings every Tuesday and Friday at 10 p.m. Central Time. Get your ticket and get in the game. And to do that, visit mslottery.com for details and play responsibly.
Well, we've got a few happy people who've
big
played and won.
There.
That's right. On Cash 4, a Mooreville woman won $1,200 on a ticket from a corner store in Tupelo. A Laurel man won $1,200 on a ticket from Dandy Dan's 521 in Laurel. A Jackson woman won $1,350 on a ticket bought from the Hoy Road Chevron in Madison. Another Jackson woman won $5,000 on a ticket from the Highway 51 Chevron in Ridgeland. And a Lorman woman won $8,545 on 4 tickets from Fayette Food Mart in Fayette.
We had some cash pop winners as well. A Brookhaven woman, $1,250 richer on a ticket purchased at the Be Quick number 2 in Brookhaven. A Macomb woman won $2,500 on a ticket from the Be Quick number 2 in Brookhaven also. A hot spot right there.
There we go.
And then Lotto America winner, Grenada man, $3,000 in winnings on a ticket from the Sprint Mart, $41.45 in Grenada.
A Tupelo woman won $2,500 on a $2 10X the Money ticket that she bought at Super C Tobacco in Verona. And a Moss Point woman won $3,000 on a $5 Pink Panther ticket from Mississippi Alabama Market in Moss Point.
You'd think that's right there on the line, maybe.
I would assume so.
You can probably see Alabama from there.
That's probably right.
Like, Palin said, I can see Russia from my front porch.
That's right.
Well, you had a $10,000 payout winner. A Batesville woman won $10,000 on a ticket from the Piggly Wiggly, one of my favorite places, 3416 in Batesville. a $10 50 times the money winner, Kosciuszko woman, $2,000 on a ticket from Canton Drugs in Canton, and a $10 extreme payday winner. The big dog in the house today, Lucien. Man, wouldn't you like to just roll into, the Circle K store number 2000-723-339-654438 in Collins and buy you a ticket and then go, whoa, I just won $200,000? Well, that's what the Collins man did. So
that's why they called it an extreme payday ticket.
You got it, man.
Well, a Wiggins man won $2,000 on a $20 $100 million extravaganza ticket from New Palace Casino in Biloxi.
Well, we got a handful more here with the $20 200-time cash blitz winners. We had a bunch of $1,000 winners here with a West Point man won $1,000, a Crawford man won $1,000, a Savannah, Tennessee man won $1,000, a Canton man also put $1,000 in the billfold, but the Brandon man on the 200 cash blitz won the $2,000 on a ticket from Sam's, Exxon, and Flowwood.
And an Oxford woman won $1,000 on a $20 colossal cash ticket that they bought at the West Jackson Chevron, and a Northport, Alabama man won $5,000 on a ticket from 45 Express Mart in Columbus. That is your Mississippi Lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Remember, you can't win if you don't play, and play responsibly. Y'all stick with us. We'll have more coming up in the next hour. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Thanks for starting your day with us as we enter the second hour of mornings. And this hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR benefits and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services come in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. There's a story that came out yesterday that the Harris political staff had a list of Republican-appointed judges that they wanted to have ready in case President Biden abruptly died in office because they believed that it would add legitimacy to her being president if there was a federal judge who had been appointed by a Republican who swore her in the event that she became president because President Biden died. In one more of these books that have come out talking about just how chaotic and bad things were inside the Biden White House. There was another book that was previewed last week where it talks about Biden's chief of staff and how deeply concerned Ron Klain was about Biden's mental state. And it just, to me, and I think there'll be more and more of these stories. I think Jake Tapper had a book from CNN talking about how out of it he was. And it just about gives you whiplash because it was just a year ago they were telling us that he didn't have any mental problems, that any suggestion that he was in any sort of decline was just, Republican deep fakes. It had no basis in truth. You should look the other way. And I think it speaks to how dishonest so much of the national political media is, that they really are. And you know this, if you're listening to the Gallo Show or the Mornings with Richard Cross or really anything on SuperTalk, you're aware of it. But just how much the national media are propagandists for the National Democratic Party, and how much of political media at the national level is more about entertainment than it is about informing. It's telling you what you want to hear, so you'll keep clicking on those links.
Well, as somebody who spent a long time sifting through the price of tea in China as compared to this, that, and the other. You're going to get a report that says buy. You're going to get a report that says hold.
Right.
You're going to get a report that says sell. No one knows in many cases. That's just the way the media is. They throw it out there, and it gets clicks.
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
right.
going to play both sides of that coin. So when we talk about things like the market, don't believe everything you read, because there is some level of self-dealing maybe in there.
Yeah.
And because you can read articles all over, and they're going to give you an opposite opinion, every one of them. And, it gives you a paralysis by analysis.
Well, and worse, a lot of them won't even tell you. They're giving you their opinion, but they're not telling you it's an opinion.
Yeah, right. It's not editorial. They don't say it's editorial. But with Biden, I think Thomas brings a great question up, and I was thinking the same thing before he texted it. What's old boy up to these days?
Right.
If he's so mentally strong and he's got all of his senses and everything, why have we not really seen him?
That's such a great point.
You haven't seen him at all
because he's in decline.
He's in decline.
And that's a sad thing at a human level, that he's at a point where his brain doesn't function the way it once did. But yeah, that's the reason you're not seeing him out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's just the amount of disinformation, misinformation you receive for years.
Absolutely.
A whole group of people over there just basically hiding them over here. And you're trying to tell me a guy that can't walk off a stage and know where to go is mentally with it and capable of running the country. But
exactly.
You were told he was.
And you were told that if you even had questions about it, you were obviously, not thinking right. You were politically driven. 100%, because they wanted to shut that down.
Labels are important.
Kill it.
Labels are important to divide you.
That's right. Well, I tell you that. But the other thing they do, the media will frame things up to feed into this narrative that Trump is an authoritarian, and I think. He's a human being. He's going to make mistakes. I think the tariffs will be interested to see if those prove to be a mistake or not. My instinct is that they will be, but he's a human being. But the idea that he's some sort of a dictator who's a danger to democracy, I just don't think there's any there. But the media keeps trying to feed that story, because I think there are people on the left who want to read that story. And I give you a good example of it. There was a story that broke a couple weeks ago about a French scientist who was not allowed to enter the U.S. Because he'd been critical of the president. That was the story. It was a headline that they had found text messages on his phone that were critical of the president, so he was denied entry. As I understand it, he was denied entry because he had confidential information on his device that he wasn't supposed to have. He'd signed an NDA, and that was the reason he wasn't able to be here. But there was a huge storm about this idea that because he'd been critical of our dear leader, we were no longer letting him in, because that's the story that the media wants to tell.
It doesn't seem to me, though, and you and I do this, take care of business on a daily basis, whether you're in that seat or not, you're paying attention to what's going on out there. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the dictator. I haven't seen the authoritarian.
Exactly.
I haven't seen the Nazi that they all claim that, the supporters of Trump are. I haven't seen that. I have seen an extremely emotional and unreasonable approach from the left to basically anything that a president does, if his name is Trump, or anyone that supports him, is evil.
Right. That's right.
And that's the narrative. So I can't imagine anything that comes out of the left, or any basic news media that has followed the left for these many years, is going to change course because this guy's up there. They're hoping in 2 years or less now that he's not going to have the power to do anything. And that's the logic, I think, to a lot of the media is, let's just keep pouring this negative because it's not that much time until there's a midterm.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's also a business decision, right? You have people who want to see stories about how he is an authoritarian. And so if that's what gets the clicks, that's
the flat earth theory, right? If you want to believe in the flat earth, even though there's plenty of evidence that suggests that's not the case. And again, I'm not saying folks are a quack for believing in flat earth, but the evidence suggests that the earth is round.
Correct. I think we can agree.
So it's kind of that way, I think. You can believe whatever you want. Doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
You can be very misguided and very confident in your beliefs and probably show up to work every day and do these things, but you have these crazy beliefs that if you actually had a conversation with somebody that didn't think that way, they would go, wow, man, this person is out there.
That's right.
And that's kind of the way I feel about the left right now. And it's not that I don't respect their opinions or believe that, they're valid. What I think they're skewed, though, extremely skewed based upon a perception the media is fed forcefully to you for a very long time.
Because it'll get people to click. I mean, remember
That
after
creates
Biden
business,
won, after Biden won, the ratings for all these national news shows fell off because they weren't able to feed this constant, look out, the dictator's going to get you stories that have so many people clicking. I mean, another good example, Fox News was at an anti-Trump rally, and talk to some of the protesters there. And first, let me say, there's nothing wrong. I disagree with you, but there's nothing wrong with going to a rally and protesting the policies of the current administration. But one of the things these people talked about was they were protesting because they wanted to live in a country where there was still free speech. Think about that for a second. Mm-hmm. They were protesting to protest for the country having free speech. That's the point. I mean, the idea, if this were a country that no longer had free speech, you'd be arresting those people for criticizing the people in leadership. And they're right. I want to live in a country that's got free speech. We have it. That's one of the greatest parts of America is I can get on here and say good things or bad things about the people in power, and I don't have to worry about when I go out and go to my car, there's going to be some policeman there. But some of these people have just been fed this narrative over and over again that he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator, he's a threat to democracy, and as a result, they believe things that I just think aren't factually accurate.
And I think there's a grand desire to believe it.
Yes, there is.
There has to be an appetite there. If you go order a large pizza and eat the whole thing, then you were hungry for it. And I think that's the way a lot of this is there's been an appetite created because you've said, hey, the people that support this individual, the people that support this administration, they're a bunch of crazies and all they want to do is tear up America and blow it up and turn it into a dictatorship. And there is absolutely no evidence that exists. And those that believe there is want to believe there is.
Yeah,
they don't want
to
see both sides. They just want to believe one thing, and that is an echo chamber, and that is where they live.
That's exactly right, and it's fed over and over again. And I don't think it's accurate.
I'm with
I don't
you,
think
though.
it's particularly healthy.
I'm with you on tariffs. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seems to me like though, if you want to create a free trade bloc, that you're moving in that direction by. We've got 50 countries now that are saying, "Hey, well, let's just throw this stuff away and try this." Kind of open arms here.
Well, Larry and Mize on the C Spire text line asks that when tariffs work, am I going to stand corrected? Absolutely, Larry. And I'll say, I hope that what ends up happening here is that this is a negotiating tactic that's going to cause some short-term pain, and we will have freer trade when all is said and done. And yes, if that happens, then I will absolutely stand corrected. Y'all, great show. We got Andy Gipson coming up next. We got the Lieutenant Governor after that. Stick with us, and if you want to be part of the conversation, send us a text at the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Things with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
I was only 17 back then, but it seems like I knew more than I do now. I can't say he didn't tell me this city life's a hard road to hoe.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. With us on the line is the one and only Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, Andy Gipson. How you doing, Commissioner?
I'm great. How are you doing, Lucien?
I am doing well. I understand you are in Panama. Am I correct?
I'm in the heart of Panama City here on behalf of the state of Mississippi and the United States on a trade mission here, and had a great 2 days already. We got another 3 days ahead, and a lot of great opportunities for trade between our countries, and frankly, that'll help our state sell more products here in Panama. Very friendly country to America, the heart of the Panama Canal, a lot of trade, and it's also the financial center of Latin America here in Panama City. So it's good to be here on behalf of our great state.
So are y'all going to retake the canal while you're down there?
Well, we've taken a look at it, and I'll be going back there tomorrow And I'll tell you, there's a lot of commerce, a lot of ships from all over the world going through that canal. The canal is much larger than it used to be. It's been expanded over the years. And it's amazing to me how much product is moving through that canal from the Atlantic side to the Pacific side and the other way. They're going both ways. And then, of course, you know that China owns the main ports on both ends of the canal. So that's a big discussion. And it's in the news here. There's been a deal for those ports to be sold to American investors, but that blocked by China last week. So all that's in the news, the local news here. People are very interested in that topic.
I can imagine they're paying close attention to it. So what's the purpose of the trip? What are y'all working on doing for the state?
Well, we are with the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture as part of a USDA-funded trade mission. And this mission is to explore new markets for our products, American products. Of course, we have a lot of products to offer in Mississippi, whether it's poultry, soybeans, cotton, a lot of great exports that we have. But also other parts of our country are represented here. We have folks from Montana. We have folks from South Carolina. We have folks here from even Arizona. So every part of the country is represented, and it's an opportunity to explore new markets, but also expand existing markets. And I got to tell you, we went to the local stores here yesterday in Panama, and these people prefer American products.
Really?
Amazing. Yeah, well, to walk into a supermarket, Reba Supermarket in Panama City, and the preferred products on the shelves are U.S. products in England. The official currency here is a Balboa, but it's one Balboa for $1 U.S., and they'll take a U.S. dollar all day long. So it's a very pro-American, very, very friendly nation to our country, and they want to expand more imports here from America. And they do send a little bit to the United States in the way of fish and some forest products, I think. Concrete rock products. But for the most part, 80% of the imports here are American products. So they're already a great market. And
that's
what
wonderful.
We don't want to happen. Yeah, we don't want the other nations to get a foothold in here.
So does Mississippi export a fair amount to Panama?
We do. We have Mississippi rice going to Panama. That's their number one cuisine. They love rice. People here in Panama, a lot of rice. We also ship a lot of soybean product here, feed product. They raise their own chickens here in Panama, but we provide 100% of the feed stock for the poultry in Panama. And so our grain product is exported here. And we do send some limited meat products here. I went to a grocery store. They had USDA prime beef on sale.
Really?
They're marketing it that way because they want American beef. And in fact, I've got a meeting with a lot of folks here in the livestock industry here today. They want to buy more American beef.
That is great. Is the preference for American-grown, American-raised product, is that a quality issue principally for them or something else?
It dates back to our close relations with Panama since the building of the Panama Canal and the Panama Canal Zone, the defense relationship we've had here. Incidentally, the defense secretary is in Panama right now, meeting with military officials. So there's that affinity and just a long-standing. But it is really about quality. They know that when they get American products, it's a high quality, it's safe, it's healthy, and that's what they prefer. So we want to grow that and then also export more of that into Central America, Latin America at large. That's the reason we're here.
I assume you've been hearing a fair amount from people down there about the president's tariffs. Is that a source of concern in Panama?
You know, it is a concern. It's in the newspapers. I don't speak Spanish, but I've got an interpreter, and it's in the news every day. The 10% tariff that was put on Panama is the minimal tariff. The president here in Panama has said, look, we're just going to seek an exemption. We have a great relationship with the United States. We want an exemption here. And I think that it will, if it can happen anywhere, it'll happen here in Panama. And like I said, I heard you earlier on the show, I think that the whole goal of all this is better trade deals, more fair trade deals, not only here in Panama, but all around the world.
Yeah.
So what our president is doing is resetting trade relations globally. And I've been all over the world in different countries that are friendly to America and those who really don't like us. And in every region of the world, there's an opportunity to reset for a better trade deal, to have more fair trade that will benefit our American farmers, our commerce, and mutually benefit both countries. So I think you'll see that happening here in Panama.
That's great. And I agree with you. If that's where we end up, if we end up with fairer and freer trade, then that's going to make everybody, that's better for everybody in the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you one example. Last year I was in India. India is now the world's largest country, the largest market internationally. But they have put so many blockades on our products, tariffs, to keep our products out of India. And yet they want to sell all their products to America. So I think you're going to see a big deal happen there. Everybody knows about China, the results that we see there. But we have to understand this trade war didn't just happen. It's been going on about 5 years. And what President Trump is doing is launching an offensive that we're all hopeful will result in better deals for Americans and for people all around the world to buy more American products. And look, we want to buy their products too, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they're going to tax our products at 50%, they ought to take another look at that. They're going to have to with these new tariff proposals.
Yeah, it does seem like there's some cases, and India is a good example. Brazil, I think, is also one where they're clearly, we're not getting a fair end of those trade relationships. What about talking about China? I mean, do we export much in the way of crops to China from Mississippi?
So, when I took office as Ag Commissioner in 2018, China was our number one trading partner. Today, they're number 6.
Okay.
Vietnam, Mississippi's top trading partner now. They buy a lot of our forest products. They buy a lot of cotton. And China has dropped so far, and that's frankly a part of their strategy. They have been stopping buying American products and buying them instead from other places like Russia, Brazil, places around the world. They're cutting out America from the trade economy. And that is a move China has made for the last number of years. It didn't just happen. President Trump did negotiate a better trade deal for our farmers in his first term, but I think the aim now is a better deal for all aspects of the industry and economy. I mean, let's face it, we buy a lot of junk from China. We buy all of our toys, all just stuff, and yet they're taxing our products in a way that our products are not being sold there. That is a fundamental imbalance that's resulted in the worst trade deficits that our nation's ever seen. In fact, if you look at agriculture, we're looking at a $45 billion trade deficit. That's never happened before. We're buying more food products from other countries than we're selling. That's because China has made a strategic move. And I appreciate what President Trump is doing and say, look, we're not going to sit back and just keep taking this and hope it all works out. We're going to reset this. I think that the negotiations with the other nations will be easier and quicker, and I think the fight with China is going to be a more long, drawn-out process.
I think you're right. We are out of time, unfortunately, so that's going to be the final word. Thank you, Commissioner Gipson, for taking the time to be with us all the way from Panama.
Thank you. God bless you, and I'll see y'all when I get back. We'll see y'all soon.
That's been Andy Gipson, our Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. This is Lucien Smith, in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann coming up after this.
Goodbye, don't you cry, I'm going to Louisiana to buy a coon dog and a big fat hog and marry Susiana. Sing song, ding dong, I'll take a trip to China. Cornbread and butter beans.
From the SeaWorld.
This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Continuing a jam-packed show. We got with us in studio the one and only Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann.
Thank goodness there's only one, most people say. We couldn't take two of that guy.
Well, I appreciate your being here, Governor. I know you got a little bit going on.
We do. We're going through a whole lot of things. We're mainly planning for next year. What we're doing, but we've got some news stories, Lucien, that's come to us in the last few days, and those have to be the Doge people have arrived in Mississippi, and
that's something
they have, and they're asking for a lot of things. I'll give you a couple of examples. The Department of Health wrote me, Dr. Edney's done a great job, wrote me a letter saying that they were pulling $120 million out of his budget.
Goodness.
And that he had looked at the Doge, I guess they got a website or something, and he said there's another $100 million coming, so I'll be $220 million short. So I asked him what were those programs, and he's going through that. What did we lose? Some of them were community health centers. We were rebuilding all the community health centers. They had really been ignored over a period of years, and that's where a lot of primary care is covered in Mississippi. So that was one of the things that pulled out. There were some research things that he was doing on bird flu and some other contagion stuff. So that went out the window. And same time, Mississippi State lost a whole section up there on research. Stonehill and the Delta lost people. The Vicksburg Military Park lost people. So all of those were very difficult because, and I explained this the last time through, we have to decide whether or not we're going to replace those with Mississippi money. That's what's fixing to happen.
Right.
So we may have some of these that we say, well, we're just not going to keep up with bird flu, but we need to finish the community health centers, and that'll be X. So I'm really spending time right now determining X. How much do we really need to go forward? And I am very reluctant to leave contractors with half-built stuff. I mean, those are Mississippi people, Mississippi companies. We really can't do that. So then, the next day, we got a letter from the Department of Education, and under the Doge, I'm not sure exactly how they're working up there, but the Department of Education got cut $137 million. Now you're doing the math, I hope, and on this. You see, we're running about $400 million so far, and that's just the last weeks. But in the Department of Education, they cut off a number of different matters that were ongoing. Now, some of these are teaching kids that are dyslexic. It could be teaching additional work for schools that were struggling on math. For example, it's hard to get math teachers out in public education. And so I asked Phil Birchfield, who runs the Superintendent's Association, great guy, I asked him to please go find out, what school and how much school. And I brought, and those just came in yesterday afternoon late. And let me give you a couple of instances. East Tallahatchie, that's Charleston. You would be familiar with that. Mm-hmm. $562,000. Then you go over Hattiesburg Public Schools, $1.6 million.
Wow.
For Hattiesburg.
That's real money.
And those were tutorials on math and English, needs-based professional development and coaching the teachers to do better, technology, structure, all of that. Holmes County, one that's really struggled, $1 million. That's software, reading, and those kinds of things that back up student achievement. Jackson Public Schools, $6,870,000 were pulled last week.
Wow.
And those were programs and services, including HVAC for some of their buildings, upgrades for those, academic support, instructional coaching for individuals, those kinds of things. And
is there an explanation for the cuts? Because I know the theory of Doge is they're supposed to be identifying waste, fraud, and abuse and eliminating it.
Well, what they're doing is eliminating these programs. What this was, let me give you just a couple more.
Yep.
Macomb, $9.6 million. So all my friends in Pike County, your school system lost $9.6 million.
Wow.
And those are programs for technology, internet switches to get their internets better at school. Expansion of Summit Elementary School was in there, and just a whole series of things. And Warren County was about $6 million. And what they've done, I think, is just freeze program funds that were extended last year. We had these ESSER funds and whatnot, and we had to finish everything by September. We had these projects ongoing, so they asked for extensions to complete the projects. And the federal government granted those extensions sometime late year, or probably in January, before the current president, before my president Trump came in. So as soon as he got here, January the 21st, 22nd, he started this program, and here about 30 days, 60 days later, they sliced $137 million out of public education here. And each one of those districts is, I can tell you, some of this Natchez School, Adams County School District, $2.8 million. South Pike, which is down there again in the Summit area and McCormick area. Vicksburg, my old stomping ground, Warren County District, $7.8 million. So those are huge hits in various parts of our state. And so our next step, which I'll be doing hopefully this week, is then to come back. First of all, we've asked for extensions and forgiveness, give us some of this money back. Some of it was incurred between January and March when they cut it off. So we've got some, maybe $20 million we might be able to get back by the fact that they didn't close it off quick enough. But after that, we're going to have to determine if they're going to give us anything back, hopefully, and our congressional district needs to do really well with that. But if not, then we have to decide which ones we're going to spend our money on, or just let the programs grow. And
you don't have a money printer like the federal government does.
No, sir. We're on the debt. We pay off debt. We're like regular citizens down here.
Is there? I mean, obviously the legislature left without a budget. Mm-hmm. Is there? I mean, it sounds like because of this, it may work out for the best that y'all are able to formulate the budget a little bit closer to the beginning of the fiscal year with more information.
I think that's without question. And look, Lucien, you've been around long enough. They haven't touched DEQ, marine resources, child protective services, mental health. Those are ones I can come off the top of my head that had various federal funds that are either going to be restricted, or maybe if we get lucky there won't be any, but I can't imagine that this is only two. I expect we'll have others. And you're right about that. Sometimes the Lord works in strange ways. So we just need to follow His plan, whatever that is, and it may give us an indication of how many hundreds of millions of dollars that we actually need to be very cognizant of here, so that we can pay our suppliers and people that are working for our state and for our education systems.
So walk us through a little bit. I mean, what happened at the end of the session? Because my sense was y'all were fairly close together, but then ultimately Siney died without a budget. I mean, when did things change, or what was the problem at the end of the day?
Well, at the very end, the last week before, we have since time immemorial, I'll put it that way. Nobody in the Capitol could remember longer than 30, 40 years, but always. The last week before Siney died, we had the final budget hearings. And the reason you do that is because you've passed all of these other bills, and you kind of know what the expenses are and how much you're going to put here or there. And you're going through, we start actually establish a budget at a committee meeting in December. So with that, the budget committee establishes the approximate budget for the next year, and then it varies. So the last week, my chairman, Briggs Hobson, went down to see, we were all there working, went down to see the other side, and I think they have 4 or 5 in the House that actually do their budget. Went down to see them on Monday and Tuesday, and they weren't there. And nobody showed up. So I asked him to write a letter saying we were ready to start, because I could see this coming. We were going to run out of time. So he wrote a letter and went down to the head of their department, their group that puts together the budget, and they were all in the room together. They said, "Oh, no problem. We'll be right down. We're going upstairs." So he came back and sat there, and I stayed with him until about 9 that night, and nobody came. Then that was Wednesday, and I was very nervous about being able to complete the budget. But Thursday morning, they all showed up, said, "Let's go." So we picked up. Everybody started going like crazy. We stayed till 1:30 in the morning, Lucien. We got through 71 of 105 budgets, just going hour after hour, budget after budget, not completing because you have to do all of them to get one budget, So Friday morning we came and we were going to have to work all day and all night again to finish by Saturday. Our deadline was Saturday at 8 o'clock. Well, Friday, they came in around noon and said they were leaving, and they left. And so the Senate stayed, and then we stayed Saturday, and there's no House. They didn't show up. So we got caught. I mean, they wouldn't complete the budget. I don't know any other way to say it, but they just walked out. So the excuses were, well, we want to have more time to look at it, but we had to have a budget first. So when I came in the next week, I said, look, let's finish the budget, and y'all work together on the budget. No, we're not doing that unless we extend the time for the session. So well, we wouldn't have to extend the sign if you showed up last weekend. So it kind of deteriorated from there, and we ended up not having a budget, which is difficult. But as you just mentioned, it may be fortuitous.
You got time to stick with us for one more segment?
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann.
Said I ain't gonna stop till I come up and make my money go. Yeah, I come up and make my post down the chicken sauce, say they all know my name.
From the Bendable Glass Truck.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
What's up? Let's get the show going.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Still with us is Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. We were talking before the break. The legislature adjourned sine die without budgets. Did any appropriation bills pass, or are they all?
No, they're all put together. They all act as an aggregate. You have to put them all together to get the final budget. So we had done about kind of handshaked on and agreed to about 71. And we have about 30 or 40 to go, and I've encouraged the House, and they've agreed to this, that our people will start back immediately meeting this next week, it's harder now because everybody's gone. I had to get a guy from Vicksburg to get with a guy from Oxford to get with a guy from Winona.
You can't just walk down the hall.
It's harder, but we'll go through that process. And then, as you mentioned, while we're doing this, it's very healthy for us to see what's being rugs pulled out from under us. And right now it's about $400 million, but I'm very doubtful that that'll be the end of it.
So procedurally, y'all, because you've adjourned sine die, the governor is the only one who can bring you back, correct?
That's correct. He can call us back in, and of course he sets the agenda for that. So he may have some ideas on his own, and I think he's communicated both with me and also with the House side, and he may have some ideas on his own, but he'll get everybody from a pardon to you pick it. We'll ask him to put on the call. But he's pretty judicious about that, and my conversations with him were good. We need to stay focused on what the real thing is, and the real thing is to get a meaningful budget that takes into account the kinds of things that are happening to Mississippi.
I do remember when I worked in the governor's office, every time there would be a special session, your phone would light up with people who just needed one little. It's just one little thing. It's not controversial.
Right. We need a bridge to nowhere.
Exactly.
So that he has to do all of that. Bless his heart. But anyway, he's good at it, and we'll wait until see what his call is.
So y'all are talking though. The House and the Senate are communicating now.
Well, the budget people will be. Everybody else has gone home. I'm there every day, and we're working on other issues, like what are we going to do next year?
Right.
The budget is the budget, but next year we really have too large of a government structure, and so we're going to spend time looking at our government structure. There's a number of different articles about how we're going to be affected by the fact the president wants to bring back on these things. So Lucien said he's bringing them back. The only barrier to him bringing them back is an educated workforce. So I want to come back again. We had proposed last dollar tuition-free community college for our kids, but we're going to have an educated workforce, assuming the president is successful and brings these things back online to Mississippi. If they're going to start a new factory here to make the transmissions for the cars or something, I got to have workers at the transmission place. So to do that, we have to have an educated workforce, and you'll see some real push now. We have a great community college system. Just it's spread everywhere, and you can get a certificate, or you can get 2 years towards your 4-year education. That's where we need to be. High school, the 12th grade is just really the second to last stop. We have to get another year, 2 years, or 4 years from our students in order to be competitive with the industry that's coming back here. And if you look at some of the Wall Street Journal articles, they'll say the biggest problem with bringing things back on is we don't have the workers. We don't have the people to actually do the work. And in Mississippi, we're particularly low. We have about a 56% labor force participation rate. And
do you think that's a function of education in part?
Well, the better educated I am, the more chance I can get more money, and the more chance I'll have somebody motivated to get up off the couch and go to damn work.
Right. So what is I know you pushed it this year. I mean, how would you do that? Would this be the state essentially funding free community college?
That's correct.
Okay. For the full 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And with that, it's last dollar, so many of our children qualify for a bunch of federal programs or scholarships, or they may win the Kiwanis scholarship or whatever. So ours would be the last dollar tuition.
So it wouldn't be if somebody were able to get 80% of it paid for by various other things, you'd pay for 20 of it.
Right, Pell Grant, whatever they had.
What sort of reception is that getting on the other end of the building?
Not much. They killed our bill.
Okay.
They killed several education bills, and I think vice versa. We did some of theirs, and we had a retired teacher bill that I really wanted to get in, and the House killed. They were portability a lot. There were a number of different education bills that the two chairmen just got whatever, they didn't pass. That's very disappointing, and education has been a primary positive for Mississippi, so I'm hopeful that we'll get back on stride here and do things like that. We need our truancy officers to be in our schools. We have a 24% absentee rate. We passed a bill banning cell phones. They killed it in the House. Those are common sense kind of things we should have got in, and I think because we were jostling with each other, we let some really meaningful stuff from both the House and the Senate get away from us.
We've got about 15 seconds left. Any final thoughts, Governor?
Mississippi is going to have a great year. We just need to position ourselves correctly. The world is changing. Watch the TV and what the president's doing. So we just need to position ourselves for the new world, and I fully intend to do that.
Hey, thank you for taking the time to be here, Governor.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Lucien.
Hey, good to see you, too. We've had Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann here with us. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
What desire make foolish people do? I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Whatever brought you and me cannot be forgotten. I have been around the world looking.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. We've got in studio Karla, the director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know I asked you this off air, so we can start over. But tell us a little bit for folks who aren't familiar. What exactly do the Children's Advocacy Centers do in Mississippi?
Sure. So we're the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi, which is a membership organization of 14 child advocacy centers across the state, all the way from South Haven down to Waveland. And the child advocacy centers intervene after there's been an allegation of felony-level child abuse. Okay. So we're talking about the most severe child abuse, all sexual abuse, trafficking, children who've witnessed a violent crime, very severe physical abuse, are getting referred by law enforcement, Child Protective Services. One of the first steps is typically a forensic interview, and so we want to make sure that someone's asking that child about the account of what may have happened to them in a way that's non-leading, non-suggestive, and will hold up in court later on. So they all have trained forensic interviewers, and then after that forensic interview, we're making sure that children get linked up with the services they may need, whether that be mental health services, forensic medical exams, victim advocacy, court accompaniment, court prep if they have to testify in court later on.
That's extraordinary work. I can't imagine what y'all deal with. So, are you appearing in court with the children as part of this, or mostly just making sure they've got the services that they need so that they can? Well, we have experts that are the forensic interviewers, and so they are often testifying in court about the account of what the child said during the forensic interview. Testifying to that disclosure that may have happened. The therapist may be testifying in court as well as victim advocates, but there's also that piece where we're there to support the child and help them prepare. I mean, this is unusual, as you can imagine, for a child to have to go and testify in court, so we want to make sure that they feel as prepared as they can and as comfortable as can. Many of our child advocacy centers have what would be a court prep or court school where they can go and take the child there beforehand and let them sit in the witness chair, talk on the microphone, experience what that would be like before it's filled with a courtroom full of individuals. But then also they are being a kind of a friendly face in the courtroom on that day. Okay. And do you all operate the various different centers, or are you more of an umbrella for the different centers that are operating in the state? We're more of an umbrella. Where there is a support, we provide a lot of training and technical assistance. Each of the 14 child advocacy centers are their own 501c3s, their own nonprofits. They have a board of directors, as well as we do. But we do have funding, some state funding that we then pass through, other grant funding that we offer for them, as well as provide a lot of training, technical assistance. We do a lot of the public policy work. If we see initiatives that would impact the child advocacy centers or the system as a whole, then we're responding and working through trying to strengthen the system. That makes sense. Did y'all have anything you were looking at this legislative session other than presumably getting a budget? Funding was the big one. Right. Absolutely was the big one. There's one big area that we've been working on that is actually was not presented at the legislature, but it is a big initiative that we're working on and just in general public policy change, and that's a statewide protocol for the response to child abuse. We work obviously very closely with law enforcement, child protective services, prosecutors, medical, mental health. And up until this point, we've had each county has their own response, their own protocol, local protocol on how they're going to, all the agencies are going to work together. And from that joint investigation from CPS to law enforcement on the local level all the way through the outcome of the case or the outcome of the investigation. And so we've been working on one unified statewide protocol so that it would take the place of these 82 protocols. And that launched on April 1st. And so we've had this is a result of a 3-year project working with the Prosecutors Association and Child Protective Services, the Attorney General's offices, public safety. I mean, it's been a huge initiative that has launched April 1st, and we hope to have the full rollout by October. And so we're doing a lot of training between now and then to support the local multidisciplinary team, as we call it, in implementing this statewide protocol. So that's not something that would necessarily require legislation. Just everybody needs to agree that this is the way to handle things. Right. That's how we've approached it at this point. In this space, do people generally, and I mean the various professionals who are involved, clearly the perpetrators don't, but do the people who are involved generally get along and have a common idea of the right way to handle everything, or is there a little more getting to these sorts of agreements? Does that take a little more work with people who have different viewpoints? Oh, you obviously have different viewpoints when it comes to cases, and I mean, this is something that's a very sensitive issue, and so a lot of emotions can come into play there. I'm sure. But obviously, folks get into law enforcement and child protective services because they have a heart for wanting to protect children and want to do right by kids. And so I would say we have some amazing multidisciplinary teams. That doesn't mean they always agree. There's going to be some disagreement on how to handle a case, and that's okay. You work through that conflict, and we're looking for the truth. We're looking for what happened, and the best evidence, as well as making sure that we help children heal and that we get children to the services that they need to overcome this event that may have happened in their life. On the services side, does the state, and I don't necessarily mean just the literal state of Mississippi, but the various entities that are inside Mississippi, private or otherwise, do we offer enough in terms of, I mean, I know in some of these cases that probably nothing is enough, but do we have the sort of services that we would want to have to help children rehabilitate after something like this?
Well, just starting at the Child Advocacy Center level, at this point, we still have 32% of the state that is unserved by a Child Advocacy Center. So that's a huge need for us. Access to services is one of the number one. We are really trying to close that gap. Probably not surprising, our biggest void is in the Mississippi Delta.
Okay.
We have 2 Child Advocacy Centers that we are working with to try and get open and developed in the Mississippi Delta. It's still not going to be enough. We still have we're still going to have some areas that need coverage. But access to services right off the bat and having that Child Advocacy Center to work with a multidisciplinary team, I would say, would be right first and foremost. And then you go from there, and obviously we need more mental health services that are specifically for children who have experienced a trauma. So just because someone has a background in mental health doesn't mean they've been trained in a trauma approach or an evidence-based model to help a child heal from trauma. So we need more therapists that have this type of training.
Okay. So there's work to be done, it sounds like.
A lot of work to be done.
And in terms of getting coverage to these areas where you don't have it, is that and maybe the answer is all of the above, but is that more a function of needing trained professionals there or needing the funding to fund the trained professionals in those areas or maybe everything? Well,
I think there's a little bit of everything, but it's one, the funding, and two, having the right entity that can step in and be the Child Advocacy Center. So having a local community that's either going to step up and say, you know what, we really believe in this, we want to make sure that we have a local Child Advocacy Center, and create a nonprofit or pull together a board to begin that development, or finding an existing nonprofit that is willing to take this on underneath their umbrella. So that's been, having an area like the Mississippi Delta that may have fewer resources, finding that right fit to be able to provide those services. And then from there, making sure that we have trained professionals, we have the funding to support the work that needs to be done. That makes sense. Look, if you want to be part of the conversation, if you've got questions, hit us up on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. As you look towards the future, I mean, what should the state, and this time I do really mean sort of the legislature, the folks in executive leadership in the state, what should we be doing as a state both to help children and also help prevent abuse whenever it's possible? So obviously funding is a huge issue, and that goes across the board between the mental health services, child advocacy centers, the forensic medical exams. It costs money to provide healing for children, so that's key. I would say another big piece is the work that we're doing with the colleges and universities. So it's a workforce issue. Going back to your previous question. Across the state, we see such high turnover in child protective services and law enforcement, even prosecutors that are wanting to handle these types of cases because they're tough. I mean, I can't imagine. It's hard to hear about this every day, and so we have students coming out, going into social work, going into criminal justice that are well-meaning, have a big heart, that want to do right by kids, but did not understand the complexities of what it really means to be put in a position to go knock on the door as a child protective service worker and have to investigate a case. So we're working with our colleges and universities to reform the way we prepare our workforce. That makes sense. Can you stick with us for another second? Sure. Y'all, this is Lucien Smith here in for Richard on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more after this break.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. We've got with us in studio Karla, the director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. And if you've got thoughts, comments, questions, send us a text at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. Well, we were talking about this a little before we ran out of time. Talk a little bit more about what all y'all are doing to prepare people and recruit people to be in this space, because I can't imagine. I mean, you've got to have a special kind of heart, I would think, to want to be in an area where you're going to see this much suffering.
Absolutely. So I was talking a little bit about our program, which we call Child Advocacy Studies. And so we have been working with 28 colleges and universities, community colleges across the state to implement these courses that really help students prepare for the realities of what it's like. Because you don't know what it's like to knock on that door and have an angry parent behind you until you've done it, or you didn't before we implemented this Child Advocacy Studies. And so this is an approach that really encourages that it be that you have professionals training together. So your faith studies leader, criminal justice majors with nursing students, with your education majors, social workers. So they're learning to communicate on the front end. They're learning each other's roles, because when you go back to one of your earlier questions about do we have conflict, a lot of that conflict arises because professionals don't understand each other's roles. They don't understand the lanes or the limitations they have by their own agencies' policies, by the laws. And so they're learning on the front end how to communicate with each other, what each other's role may be during that investigation, prosecution, treatment. And then there's a lot of experiential learning, simulation learning that happens during these courses. So we have at our office a simulation center, and essentially you can go from crime scene to trial. So now we have students that are going through and walking into a simulated house, knocking on that door, having an actor, having to interview a child about that allegation, interviewing parents, walking through. So they're looking at different evidence that may be there, and then all the way through practicing testifying in court. So simulation learning is not new for, say, law enforcement or even physicians, but it's really not something that entered this space of child welfare, child protection until the last, 15, 20 years. And so we've done a lot of work over this last 10 years with our colleges and universities to implement this program. And we've just been amazed by how much they have embraced this. And so many of them now have either a certificate program or minor.
I would think you've got a fair amount of burnout from professionals in this space too. I mean, I would think this wears on you over time.
Absolutely. I will say that I think the national average is something around 2 to 3 years for a child protection specialist.
Really?
And so
did they get out of the space completely at that point?
They just get out of the space and move on. And that's tough, and they've got to slow that down. And our hope is to help support that through preparing students. And the research shows that when someone has been trained and has this the child advocacy studies, then they remain in their space, in their position longer. Because what happens is, one, they now know what they're getting into. They understand the realities of what this is going to look like. And then they may also find that, wait a minute, I don't quite fit in social work, but I do enjoy this work. I would be better fit in criminal justice or in a child advocacy center. And so they find their right space from the beginning.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, like we said, I'm sure it's got to be a really special type of person, both because of the difficulty of the subject matter, but also, I would assume nobody's getting rich in the Child Protective Services area.
That's right.
So April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. If you're obviously supporting the good work that y'all and others do is one way. I mean, are there signs that people should be looking out for children who are potentially the victims of abuse or subject to trafficking. I mean, what should the listening audience know and be thinking about as a way of being supportive here?
Sure. So we encourage the community to first start by learning signs and symptoms of abuse, looking out for, if your child has had some behavior changes, emotional changes, suddenly they're wetting the bed when they weren't before, that there is having nightmares or fears that weren't there before, avoiding individuals that they may have previously been around, or your children suddenly getting unusual gifts from someone. So really paying attention to when children's behaviors and emotions change. So from there, besides learning the signs and symptoms, talk to your children. I think that is one thing that often parents shy away from, is having those difficult conversations with their children about abuse, about body parts, the correct names for body parts,
right.
What to do if they feel uncomfortable, if you allow your child to sleep over at someone's house. Do they have the permission to pick up the phone and call you at any point in the night to say, you know what, I want to come home? So giving children that option and letting them know that it's okay to talk to you. We have many of our child advocacy centers have what we call darkness to light training. It is a program for the parents to be able to get some education about signs and symptoms. What do you do? How do you respond if a child does make a disclosure? So we encourage individuals to go through those courses. We offer them at the Child Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. You can find them on our
even
website.
Even if you don't have reasons to suspect. Just to be a more informed parent. We want
everyone to come through prior to ever having, yes, right. If you suspect, but we would rather you come through, parent come through now. If you're teaching a Sunday school, if you are a teacher's aide, we want you coming through this training so that you understand about abuse, understand the signs of abuse, understand what to do. So individuals can go to our website. It's a free training that we offer virtually, and sometimes virtually, sometimes we do it in-house. It's childadvocacyms.org, and so you can go there and look on our events page and sign up for the courses. And then, of course, if someone suspects abuse, we want them to make that report to Child Protective Services. So that's 1-800-222-8000. That's really critical. Let the professionals that know how to investigate abuse do it.
Okay, so, that's good advice.
If you suspect it, I think what so often happens is that individuals say, well, I just don't want to get them in trouble. Or something doesn't feel right, but they're hesitant to make a report. Know that they make a report. You have individuals that are trained to go in and ask the right questions, that know how to investigate the abuse. So that takes the burden off of you as the citizen.
And are those anonymous? I mean, if you call, I know the person on the other end of the line will know who you are, but if you did suspect abuse and you called CPS, will they know that you made the call?
You can remain anonymous, and you can also go through their website and make a report that way.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Chad from Hattiesburg is curious about whether y'all have a seat at the table, whether the Child Advocacy Centers have a seat at the table in the work on the Olivia Y litigation.
We are not in that space.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. If folks want to learn more about what y'all do, where would be the best place for them to go?
You can go to our website at childadvocacyms.org.
And that's also the best place to learn about some of these programs that you offer for parents? Absolutely. You can go to our events page and you'll find our trainings there. Okay. Mm-hmm. But y'all do get state funding, so you're caught up a little bit in this budget situation. We are. Okay. Yes. Is that a grant through DHS, or where is that? Or CPS? Or? Our funds come through the Department of Health. Okay. And so there's state funds that are come through there, and many of those have offset the VOCA funds that have been federal cuts that we have seen over the last several years, which is Victims of Crime Act funding. And so the state has, over the years, been able to help absorb some of those larger federal cuts. Okay. Well, that sounds like there's some more of that that's coming. We've got about a minute left. Any final thoughts or things you'd want to make sure people know about the work you do, or anything during this month recognizing the dangers of child abuse? Well, April is National Child Abuse Awareness Month, so we just would encourage everyone to go out, learn the facts. We have
We have magazine articles that are coming out across the state. We have ads. We have billboards. Go out, learn more, help us protect children.
Well, thank you, and thanks for what y'all do. I mean, like we were talking about, it's just an extraordinarily important topic, but one that I think a lot of people who aren't in and around this area aren't. It's not easy to talk about. Yeah. And I assume if you're interested in supporting the work of either the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi or individual Children's Advocacy Centers, your website will help make it possible to donate.
That's right. We will. We always welcome donations.
I can imagine. Well, thank you for taking the time to be with us, Karl, and thanks for everything y'all do.
Thank you.
Y'all, this has been Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more coming up right after this break.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. That's been quite a run of guests with Andy Gipson coming to us from Panama.
Not Panama City.
Exactly.
Not USA.
Not in Florida. Yeah. He came from Panama. And the Lieutenant Governor. And
Panama.
Yeah, there we go. Got something.
I wonder if he's got, he's down there listening to some Motley Crue, maybe. Isn't that Motley Crue, Panama, or is that?
I don't know, but I guarantee you, we're fixing to get an answer on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395.
No, Van Halen. I knew I was wrong.
Well, I mean, you're in the right phase of time, more or less.
I should know better.
I'll say this again at some point, but on the subject of children, I mean, what extraordinary work! You just can't believe people do this. This is a little less serious, but still can be deadly. As the temperatures are heating up, we were talking about in the 6 o'clock block that this is sort of probably the last snap of cold weather, and so in a few weeks we're going to get to the phase where it's just blistering hot all the time. And I would just remind people that if you've got a young child, somebody who can't open the car door on their own, somebody who's in a 5-point harness, you ought to leave a purse or a cell phone or a briefcase or something you won't forget on the back seat if every single time you're driving that kid, because there's been this research. People make this assumption that the only people who forget kids in cars are the bad parents, the abusive parents, the folks who are hopped up on drugs or alcohol. But there have been multiple studies that show really high-quality, loving parents can forget a kid in the car. And there's science behind it, because most of the time when we're doing something we do every day, driving to work, being the most likely scenario, we operate in an unconscious part of our brain. It's the reason that sometimes if you're driving to work, you don't necessarily even remember the drive. You remember getting in the car, and then you kind of go on autopilot. Now, you're doing it while you're doing it, but you don't have this memory of it because a different part of your brain is operating. And what happens in a lot of these cases with high-quality parents is they are driving their kid to school. They don't normally take the kid to school. Now, there are other scenarios that happen, but this is the most common. They're good parents, put the kid in, they're driving to school. Something along the way distracts them. They get a phone call that was unexpected, or they see an email at a red light, or somebody runs a red light and it startles them, and it just slips them back into that unconscious part of their brain where they think, I'm going to work. And the cars in Mississippi, it is so hot once it gets warm, can heat up hot enough to kill a kid quick. So I would just, on the serious topic, and then we may make it light for the last little bit, put something on the back seat. If you're like most of us, myself included, and you've got a nasty cell phone addiction, put that cell phone on the back seat because you'll start twitching if you get halfway to your desk and realize you don't have that cell phone. And Jim from Ripley points out dads are more often than women the ones that it happen to because they tend not to be primary caregivers. There are plenty of exceptions to that. But anyhow, be careful as things start to heat up.
Well, and kids, I mean, goodness gracious, there's helpless little creatures that, are going to be the ones inheriting the world that we leave them.
That's right.
Got to take care of those little things. And all the great work. I mean, we have so many people in organizations here that just absolutely love children, take care of children, watch over children. The Sally Kate Winters remote from last week, just such a heartwarming piece of what we have as far as of a civilization, people that care, that look out for those that are incapable in many cases of standing up on their own, and just continue to just be impressed by the type of people and the individuals that are in that world, because it's not easy. I mean,
I cannot imagine.
I can't either. I don't have children. Been very fortunate to have helped raise others, and it's just something. There's a light that comes on in your life to see children
Amen.
Smile and happy and successful and learning and feeling good about themselves. And it takes the breath out of you when you see the opposite.
Absolutely.
It just does.
Absolutely. Well, if you own or run a small business, can customers find your business online? With the power of STMM Digital, you can reach potential customers and get more referrals and repeat business. STMM Digital's highly trained and trusted staff is ready to work with you to help your business capitalize on the power of digital marketing. Call 601-991-2305 or go to stmmdigital.com to get started today. Another person here on the C Spire text line says they leave a shoe on the back seat. I'm telling you, people think it's crazy and can't happen to them. It is a good way to be to assume that it can, because it absolutely can. Well, you used to do some financial work, Lance. Yeah. I'm blown away by this. You can now. There's a deal between DoorDash and Klarna. Klarna being one of these buy now, pay later lenders. So if you want to order a Burger King sandwich and have it delivered to your home, you can pay for it in installments. Would you think that's a particularly good financial move there?
Terrible idea.
Yeah,
terrible.
I mean, and I think if you're, I'm not perfectly Dave Ramsey, never use a credit card on anything or borrow money. But I think if you're financing the Burger King, if you're financing the Whopper over 6 months, you need a different plan.
Of course. I mean, how much did you just pay for the Whopper? Ask our government what we're paying for everything, running the deficits, with spending and debt that we have. You wonder where inflation comes from.
Yeah. Naturally,
it comes from borrowing too much money. So if you want to accelerate inflation in your own life, mortgage your food.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mortgage your meal, because it's just going to cost 2, 3, 4 times as much, depending on when you pay it off.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, to go back, I mean, there are a lot of things that people borrow money to do, myself included, that aren't necessarily what real financial gurus would advise. But if you're getting a burrito and you're eating it today and paying for it in October, that was probably a poor choice.
Perishable items like that, things like a house or a mower.
That's right.
That helps you keep your home in good order, and it looks pretty, and you're going to get years of use out of it. That's calculations.
Yes.
You're just putting that to a calculator and going, all right, how much use am I going to get out of this, and could I afford that today? Oh, I can't. I got to finance it. You can find the low interest, zero interest deals. They're offered out there.
Yeah, there's some times.
Do your shopping around, but I mean, you don't need to be mortgaging food.
If you can put barbecue sauce on it, you probably should be paying as you go.
Right. Anything that goes into the gullet, I would say no. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I'm one of those. I'm not a Dave Ramsey. I mean, I remember listening to him in my formative years more before I became a financial advisor, and I always took a lot of what he said very seriously to heart, especially the budget and knowing what you have to spend, having the emergency fund, trying not to float too much debt, but there is a healthy level. You get some write-offs and stuff, but food, no, man.
Well, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier with the sort of absolutely no debt approach that he's for. It's sort of like the eat healthy and go to bed early every single night. Like, that's probably right. Yeah. Can't promise you that's exactly the way I'm going to do it, but you're right. You're not wrong.
If you can pull that off. That's one thing.
Yeah,
the chances
that's right.
are you're not needing to borrow money. So when you go to a bank to borrow money and you have not borrowed money in a while, your credit may be great because you're asset driven and zero debt. But in many cases, paying debt helps you have a better score. So
true.
So carrying a little bit is fairly healthy in the right equation. But always, you don't put stuff on a credit card that you're going to have to pay off in 6 months or a year. It's just one of those things. I was very religious about the discipline, I suppose, is the best way to go about it. And it's you can't always stick to it. But you got to have a plan.
That's right.
That you have some guardrails there.
Well, and I do think using, especially if you're on a limited income, using nothing but a debit card can be a really good choice because if there's literally no money there, it's going to get declined.
You'll say, oh, well, you should have all this money in a 401k and IRAs and all that. COVID wiped me out, so I had to rejigger, so to speak,
like a lot of people.
Yeah, so I'm not sitting here on a pile of money, and I don't have a credit card. I go straight out the account, or I use a PayPal.
It's the way to do it.
Limit the exposure to that. But am I comfortable not having a year rainy day fund? No, I'm not. I'd love to have much more set aside, and I think many Americans are dealing with much the same.
You're 100% right.
Well, and you can think guys like Fauci, who is how many countries have a warrant out for his arrest?
I saw that.
So I mean, it's we just got to stay doing what we're doing. Get back to work, stay going to the office. Be nice to folks, be courteous, and hopefully the inertia of the negatives will start kind of changing for the positives. But it takes a community effort, as they say, to raise a child, and it's going to take a country effort to get us back to where we need to be in some form of knowing what's around the corner. And, hey, we don't know that right now. It's uncertainty, and uncertainty spook everybody, including the markets.
And there's been a lot of that lately. So
when you see the market today, I mean, you talk about seesaws.
It's green now.
Yeah, it's green. Yesterday it was 2,000 down, 500 up. This stuff is seesawing.
Well, like we talked about yesterday, it's a good time to not be checking your balance every day.
Or if you like, kind of having high blood pressure, go for it.
Y'all stick with us. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. We'll be back with final thoughts.
Morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Brush your hair back from your eyes. Take you down, let the river flow.
Y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. If you missed some of the show or you want to re-listen to it, or maybe you want to listen to one of the other great pieces of news and entertainment here on Super Talk, you can get just about every Super Talk Mississippi show on your favorite podcast app. Mornings with Richard Cross, Middays with Gerard, Good Things, Super Talk Mississippi, as well as podcast favorites like Thunder and Lightning, The Rebel Report with Michael Borky, The Eagle Hour, and many other Super Talk Mississippi podcasts can be found. Just search for Super Talk anywhere you listen to podcasts. Lance, Kentucky Fried Chicken has come out with fried chicken flavored toothpaste. Apparently, it was initially an April Fool's joke, and then turned into something real. Is my
something real and disgusting, it sounds like. But I mean, who am I to say? I'm a huge fried chicken fan, but generally when I'm brushing my teeth, I want to remove the taste of fried chicken.
That's not the one you'd want to do?
No, I'm going for more fluoride.
Yeah, I'm with you. That does not sound particularly appealing.
Well, you saw where there's a big move by our RFK Jr. and getting fluoride out of the public water supply.
I saw that headline. I don't know, and I know that people have strong opinions about that.
Flat Earth, man, I'm telling you.
Fluoride's generally considered good, right? I mean,
under 1.5.
Okay.
So more than that generally can have some adverse effects on children, potentially in brain development, and also could create streaking on teeth and things of that nature.
Okay.
If you put too much, if it's over fluoridization.
I saw that, but did not. But have not. I don't know enough about it. I just know that people have really strong feelings about it. I did see that he was. He's gone to Texas, where those 2 unvaccinated children have died of measles, and was explicit that people should be taking the children should be taking the MMR vaccine to help prevent those sorts of outbreaks. There was a recently declassified CIA documents say, and I had never even heard this rumor before, that apparently the U.S. government was still searching for Adolf Hitler a decade after he was believed to have killed himself. I didn't realize that.
I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but if it's ever been written or there's a movie about it regarding Hitler and the escape.
You've seen it?
I've seen it 10 times, man. One of my favorites is The Boys from Brazil with Gregory Peck. If you haven't seen that,
I have never seen that.
Absolutely great movie. I think it's 70s era setting, but the Gray Wolf and there's some really good theories on where he ended up and how. But yeah, the Russians had a tendency to believe, even Stalin stated that they had no real evidence to suggest that it was Hitler. Now, later on, dental records showed up
that confirmed it was him in the bunker.
But, there's a lot of gray matter there, because did you really want this guy stomping around until the late 60s under the report that he was dead, maybe potentially living in Paraguay? It's hard to discern, because a lot of it doesn't add up. But there are reports. I'm trying to remember the pilot's name that reported that he and Eva Braun out of Germany as the Russians were approaching.
I didn't realize that was even a thought.
Yeah. So apparently, they had it set up so he could, ski-daddle, and they had one of the boulevards, all of the lights removed, so the Junker could land and take off. So it's a fascinating story. And then how he got out and potentially made it all the way down there. But yeah, they went on for years. Admiral Richard Byrd, very good story, whether you want to believe that one or not, about the fleet that went to Antarctica to rat out the Nazis, had a big battle and had to turn around. But some people discredit that story. Others believe it entirely, that the U.S. went down there, later after the war, looking for the Nazis that had made it out and found them, and it wasn't a good situation. So, but again, a lot of information out there about this. And it's fascinating, because
I didn't realize that was
kind of like
the
Kennedy assassination. No one really knows, even when you get verifiable information. You wonder what spin has potentially been put on it to protect people. I mean, Russia, many used Nazis and Germans after the war because of their abilities in science and other things that weren't necessarily party, card toters, and some were. But yeah, that world of what happened after World War II.
That's fascinating.
Especially the Golden Lily treasure from Japan, a lot of the different treasure that was stolen by the Nazis and the Japanese. That stuff's fascinating to me, because it's true. And you don't really know where everything ended up, in whose pocket.
And boatloads of wealth that was confiscated and stolen from folks in Europe too. That not all of which I think was recovered.
No, a lot.
Tons of it's disappeared. Yeah, that stuff's terrible. But I was totally unaware of that. But that's the reason that you listen, and sometimes it's the reason you host mornings, because you learn a great deal when you do it. It's one of the reasons I like doing it.
And one great book out there, I think it's 06, Deep Black Lies. Y'all go check it out. Excellent book about the gold and what happened to it after World War II, and fascinating stuff.
Well, we'll have to check that out.
How the world was rebuilt, in other words.
Yeah. Y'all, thanks for taking 3 hours to be with us. This has been a great show, great time to be with you, and I will look forward to being with you tomorrow. This has been Lucien Smith, in for Richard, here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Went up off the wire. I said I can't find nothing wrong with being friends, 'cause sometimes she lets me use the car.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.